So let's just walk through. I love to do this. Now we're in the autumn of 29 or the autumn of 32, depending on what date scheme you use, whether you use, the Dallas scheme and Harold Honer, or whether you use the traditional, doesn't matter. They're both very, very good. Jesus is journeying northward in Mark 8. In Matthew 16, he's up there in Caesarea Philippi in the north of the country. He's transfigured on Mount Hermon, most likely not down on Mount Tabor, which doesn't, that's where the church is, where all the buses go. But it's a beautiful place. But the context is it's up there in the north on that great snow-capped peak. And then all these events happen. Remember the boy that's demonized. Then he goes back to Capernaum, has the tribute money question, and then who is the greatest and all of that. Then he goes to Jerusalem. So he's back down here in Jerusalem. Oh, John 7 identifies when he went there. See, John is into a feast grid, and 6 times he locates where Jesus is in Jerusalem for a feast. And that's how we even know how long Jesus' ministry was, because of all the Passovers that John mentions. He mentions 3 Passovers. So he's at the feast, and this is one I wish we were doing chapter 7 today of John's gospel. That's one of the most amazing moments of Christ's ministry. It's the moment he talked to more people than any other time in his ministry. In fact, he may have talked to more people in one setting than he had talked to in all 3 years of his ministry. And basically, Jesus waited. If you read John 7, and if we were covering that, and if I was doing that today, you would find that he was in the 40-acre Temple Mount platform, right at the moment when they reenacted the water from the rock in the wilderness. That's what the feast was about. And the high priest had a golden vessel that was taken down to the pool of Siloam, filled with water, running up with one of the Levites, brought it to him, and the high priest took that and held it up. And as he held it up, every mother went, shh, to their children, shh, we want to hear the water hit the pavement of the temple. So he was up on this tall platform, held up the water, and remember what happens in John 7? Do you all remember? I'll show you. In John 7, it says this, verse 37, on the last day, that great day of the feast. And most of us just read right by that. It's like, I'm not sure what feast that is. It doesn't matter. I'm not Jewish anyway. And, and we miss it all. I mean, it's amazing to think that there were 250,000 people, most likely, jammed in for this ceremony. And a lot more wishing they could be there. And Jesus stood. And most likely, knowing Jesus, he waited till the high priest got everyone deathly silent. And he took the pot and he's tipping it to pour it. And everyone's waiting to hear the splash of that water on the pavement. And look what Jesus does. And Jesus, verse 37, cried out, and the word is kradzo, that he just screamed out in his outdoor voice. If anyone thirsts, let him come to me. He who believes in me, as the scripture says, out of his heart will flow rivers of living water. Oh, he had a way to make him so mad. He ruined it. They were doing this empty ceremony, commemorating a past event when the light of the world, the water of life, the creator of the universe was right there unknown. And so he took his moment and proclaimed that. So if I was teaching about that, I'd go on and on and on. And then he goes right into the woman taken in adultery, remember, and the Greek word is katagraphe. He wrote in the dust of the pavement toward people. So in other words, he is writing in the pavement and he looks right at the person. Kata, toward, graphe, writing toward. And most likely, because these were people holding rocks that were religious leaders, they knew the law. And the entire 10 Commandments had been reduced down to 10 letters, the letter that described each of the 10 commandments. And so Jesus looked at 10 rock holders and picked the sin that they so were aware of in their life, like the seventh command, adultery, and he looked right at one who secretly probably was living in adultery. Thud goes the rock. They left. Then covetousness, and he wrote toward another one and looked right at him. Thud. You know the story. So that's the backdrop. Now watch. He goes on to talk about being the light of the world. Then he returns to Galilee, and now it's gone from autumn to winter, and he's back up north, and he's doing the Samaritans. He goes through Perea. Remember the Good Samaritan, the unrighteous steward, the rich man and Lazarus. Then he goes back to Jerusalem. Where's Perea? Well, look, it's over in the right there. See how he goes across the Jordan River Valley. That's where I showed you all those sheep that live down in that Rift Valley. And goes through Perea and cuts back through just above Jericho and comes to Jerusalem. And now look where we are. Chapter 9. So this is the run-up to where we're going in chapter 10. He heals the man born blind, which is that great miracle sign. And now he gives the Good Shepherd, John 10, discourse. But look what it says in verse 22. So everybody look at John 10, verse 22. Now, it's another feast. Now, it's 7 months after the last feast where he is, talking and yelling during the pouring out of the water. 7 months have gone by, and you saw everything that went by. But look, it's the Feast of Dedication. Now, all of you know what that is. It's Hanukkah. I mean, that's Hanukkah. That's what you see on your calendars. And so you know it's December. And Jesus is in the winter, the rainy months. And it's the Feast of Dedication, December, the Feast of Hanukkah. In Jerusalem, it was winter. And Jesus, look at this little addition. And this is inspired for us. It says, verse 23, he walked in the temple, not just anywhere, in Solomon's court. Wow. So that's what Jesus is doing. And then he goes on from there, tarries in Bethabara, and goes on.